actually participated. Less so by someone who participated and is lecturing on it, and on and on and on, right? The idea is to try, at least for me, the idea for me is to try and get a holistic understanding of the movement. But I recognize that my understanding of the movement will be limited because there's some things that I'm just not interested in doing. Okay, so as the movement transforms, the individual participant will have to immerse and or extract him or herself. Objectivity then will itself be changing. The nature of objectivity changes with the evolution of the social movement, right? The nature of objectivity changes with the nature of the social movement. As the movement changes and the individual's level of participation changes. Okay, top of page 16. So here's a quote from, a rather long quote from Simmel himself, and this will really solidify what I've been discussing up until this point. Objectivity is by no means non-participation, period. Objectivity, this is Simmel, direct quote, right? Objectivity is not non-participation, not with respect to social movements, right? You can't say I have an objective understanding, I have an objective awareness of the Occupy movement insofar as you're a non-participant, right? Simmel would disagree with that. I would disagree with that. Freire would disagree with that, right? Objectivity is by no means non-participation. A condition that is altogether outside the distinction between subjectivity and objective orientation. It is rather a positive and definite kind of participation, right? So that's what we need to see, right? If it's not this, the question then is, what is the relationship between the individual and the Occupy Wall Street movement, right? What does Simmel say? It is rather a positive and definite kind of participation, in the same way that the objectivity of a theoretical observation clearly does not mean that the mind is a passive tabula rasa on which things inscribe their qualities. Okay, he went off on a little bit of a tangent there. What does he mean? Just really quick. You can imagine that. Imagine I had dough, and I'm going to impress a form on this dough that looks like this. Right? If I was to impress this on the dough, then after impression, the dough would look something like this, right? Right? The dough would look something like this. I would impress this form on the dough. This would be my tabula rasa, which is Lockean. Right? That would be my tabula rasa, and this would be experience. So experience impresses itself on the mind, the blank slate, and then the mind conforms to experience. So this would be the mind after experiencing something. So, for example, just a real quick tangent so that this is very clear. I go with my wife to watch Cirque du Soleil. Freaking amazing. There was life before Cirque, there's life after Cirque. You watch Cirque, you're just like, wow, that experience is on my mind. Human beings can do pretty awesome stuff, right? So this is my mind before experiencing Cirque, and I'm no longer experiencing Cirque, but Cirque, my experience of Cirque du Soleil, has shaped my mind. The idea is, Occupy Wall Street is the experience. And this is the perceiver, and Occupy Wall Street is attempting to impress itself on your mind. What Simmel says is, you can't just think of it in terms of this. It's way more complex than this sort of cookie-cutter impression social experience. It's far deeper than that, right? What he says is, it is rather a positive and definitive kind of participation, in the same way that the objectivity of a theoretical observation clearly does not mean that the mind is a passive tabula rasa on which things inscribe their qualities, but rather signifies the full activity of the mind working according to its own laws. Objectivity, and I'll explain that in a second, objectivity can also be defined as freedom. The objective man, and here's what's beautiful, right? The objective man or woman is not bound by ties which could prejudice his or her perception, his understanding, and his assessment of data. And I want to read 182. He is the freer man. What he's saying is, I think, a very, very amazing point that should be made, right? It's not the case that our mind is this passive sort of this passive substrate, which experience just impresses itself on our, actually, would it go the other way? It wouldn't go in, sorry. It would look like this. Yeah, it would look like this. Sorry, it would look like that, right? So if this is the tabula rasa and I push experience in, then after the effect would look something like that, right? What he's saying is that our mind is more complex than some passive substrate. Our mind can resist. My mind can resist things. My mind can choose to absorb things. My mind can remain indifferent to things. I can go to Occupy Wall Street, have an experience of Occupy Wall Street, and leave with the same mental structure, if you will, the same preconceptions that I had before, right? I can go to Occupy Wall Street and see things that I anticipated to see. For example, just to be sort of negative. Oh, Occupy Wall Street is full of hippies and bums and college students bitching about student loans. So I have that idea of Occupy Wall Street. I go to Occupy Wall Street, there goes a student talking about loans, and there goes a homeless guy, and then I go to Occupy, and I come back from Occupy Wall Street, I was like, yeah, it's exactly what I thought it was. The experience really hasn't transformed my mentality. Our mind isn't this sort of supple, simple structure that we just go out and the world is continually shaping it. Unlike cookie dough, our mind can resist experiences, right? It might be harder for an experience to actually transform our mentality. That's what Simmel's saying, right? So you can think about the difficulty in a social movement actually affecting our mental faculty. It's going to have to transform the way we think, in a sense, in order for us to be motivated to participate, right? And this is what's happened with me. It's, partly because, my wife and I played by all the rules. We did everything that we were supposed to do. We played by the books. We got a mortgage. I have my own story. We got a mortgage. We bought the house on a lake and the whole thing. We added thousands of dollars to the structure of the house and blah, 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 blah. Get a job, supposed to relocate. And now the house is upside down, 100 grand. And we can't buy for 3 years because we had to short sale. And, give me a break. So now I'm never going to own a home again. I have no interest in owning homes ever again, right? I give up on that, right? Once bitten, twice shy, as Jamaicans say. That experience sort of, I wonder what these Occupy people are going to talk about, right? I mean, you guys understand where I'm coming from. I go to Occupy and I realize, yes, it's part of that, but then there's all this other stuff that I didn't experience, and that starts to transform the way in which I think, right? So for Simmel, he says objectivity is really objectivity in the real sense, as far as not indifference, but participation, and to varying degrees, is the real sense of freedom. So I want to read a bit out of Simmel, just really quick. 182. So here's what Simmel says, right? He says, again, coming out of the Social Theory book on page 182, second to last paragraph. Objectivity can also be defined as freedom. The objective man is not bound by ties which could prejudice his perception, his understanding, and his assessment of data. This freedom, which permits the stranger to experience and treat even his close relationships as though from a bird's eye view, contains many dangerous possibilities. I, Jason J. Campbell, Dr. Jason J. Campbell, right? I, as an individual, both virtually Jason and sort of Jason, the homeboy on the street, am always open to new interpretations. I am wedded to absolutely nothing. If your argument is strong enough, I'll listen to what you have to say. And if your argument is strong enough, I will immediately forfeit everything that I've ever believed to be true based on the strength of your argument. If I then find out that there are weaknesses in your argument, I will relinquish that and go for the strongest argument. I'm always looking to go for the strongest argument. That objectivity, the fact that I am not dogmatically wed to anything, is problematic. It's dangerous, right? Because people don't like that. But what do you stand for? Well, I stand for whatever is the most up-to-date, justified and defended position. Well, you're not wedded to anything? Well, not really. I'm only wedded to the one thing that I am wedded to is the idea that I'm wedded to the best argument at the time, right? But that becomes problematic for relationships with people and institutions, because people want to know, what do you believe? Are you religious? Are you not religious? Are you Christian? Are you not Christian? Are you Muslim? Are you not Muslim? What do you believe in? And I tell people that I believe in everything, they think I'm crazy. All right, so this freedom which permits the stranger to experience and treat even as close relationships as though from a bird's eye view contains many dangerous possibilities. People are